we're discussing opening up the economy, opening up society, what's safe, whether 2 metres or 1 metre, and until we have answers to that, and I'm not expecting you to comment on that, but until we have answers to that, it's quite clear that the hospitality sector can't open, our tourism sector can't open. We're bringing in detriments to people coming into the country. That may be advisable. It's certainly, if it is advisable, perhaps late, but it's happening. So we're not going to have a tourism sector in Ireland this summer, it would appear. Now, I come from a constituency, as many TDs in this county do, which is heavily reliant on tourism, in particular West Clare. Yet those who work, seasonal workers in tourism, aren't covered. And that was fine at the start. Minister Donoghue explained, well, you know, we had to act in an emergency and you don't get everything right in an emergency situation. I accept that. I'm not going to take fault with what happened back then. But as it becomes more and more apparent that the opening of the tourism season is going to be pushed further and further and further out, then what happens to those people who worked in that sector? Because we do have students who are in the lucky situation for them that they were working perhaps 1 shift a week and they're getting the €350, whereas you have people, perhaps even the parents of those students, who rely on working in the tourism sector year in, year out to sustain themselves and their family, and they're just getting the unemployment assistance. And it is a huge detriment. And of course, the enterprises for which they worked can't avail of the payments either, because they weren't in employment at the time that it was brought in. You had to be, I think, in employment up to the end of February or the 6th of March at the latest. They weren't in employment then, so the enterprise can't draw down funding to take them on now. And of course they can't take them on because they don't know when are we going to be open for business. So there's a really dangerous circle, a vicious sort of cycle going on. And it was fine of Minister O'Donoghue to say, well, we didn't get everything right at the time. But that's a long time ago now, and it's even further away, it appears, when the sector is going to open up, and we need to do something about it. Now, I appreciate that's money, but we do need to be fair. The other sector I wish to draw to your attention, I may not be the first, I didn't have the benefit of sitting throughout this, is people who are over 66 who are self-employed or run a business, because they still incur the cost of trying to maintain that business. And if they're getting a state pension, that's great for them, that will maintain them, but not their business. I mean, I can give you one example. It's not somebody who's over 66, but it's somebody who works in the tourism sector. A man who works in what would be considered, I suppose, a heritage hotel in Clare, and has a number of horses, and typically the guests in the hotel would be, you know, using his services, going out with the horses. He'd be bringing them around the place. Now, there's no guests in the hotel. He has no income whatsoever. But what's he going to do? The horses are there. They have to be fed every day. They have to be shod. They have to be maintained. And he's ringing me on a weekly basis saying, but what am I going to do? Do I watch my horses starve? Do I shoot them? What do I do? And I say, I have no answer for you. And I'm not, you know, but there are a number of people. He's a relatively young man. He was a classmate of mine in school. But there are a number of people who run their own businesses who are in their 60s. He's getting the €350 a week himself, but he says, of course, that's not going to pay for my business. But there are a number of people, because they're over 66, they don't even get that. And they still have the cost of maintaining a business. Now, if you could address those in 1 minute, because, and I'm sorry if you can't, I am happy to take correspondence, but I'm sharing time with Deputy Pringle. Thank you, Minister.
Again, the difficulty with regard to the people that you think have been excluded, and we'll just deal with them separately if that's okay. So seasonal workers are not actually excluded from the Social Welfare Code. They're all actually and actively either on JB or JA, with all of the wealth of support payments that go around that. So they're not being abandoned and left behind. With regard to the over 66s that are self-employed, we were adamant that they were included in the twist, which they were. Some people were still excluded from that because they were sole traders. And we were, again, and we've said it week in, week out, that anybody that needs the Supplementary Welfare Code, it's there for them. And that includes our apprentices that are under 18. And people have come and they've made applications, and that we will look after them. So the particular gentleman that you're talking about is receiving the COVID payment. But what he also is able to receive is the Restart Grant, which will give him the repayment of his 3 months, but also the reclaiming of his rates that he would have paid to Clare County Council last year, and all of the other wealth of businesses supports that have been made available from my colleague Heather Humphreys. But there are some people that don't, and I also know that there's a pride in some people that don't want to come to the supplementary welfare people. But we are here. You can see from the estimates that the numbers are up. We won't refuse any reasonable request, and to that end we've reduced the means test for both the rent supplement and the Supplementary Welfare Code.